I was reincarnated as an evil noble in a game and became unparalleled with my overpowered muscles. The RD Demon Lord, headfirst into the fray, and hiding behind its walls are not separate problems. They are the first cracks in a story where every answer makes the world feel less safe. Somewhere between the RD Demon Lord, headfirst into the fray, and boy to focus on, this stops being a simple problem and starts feeling like a trap closing from every side. These preview pages skip across the arc on purpose, beginning, pressure point, breaking point, and the shadow of what comes after. By the end of this stretch, the early choices and hidden pressure are all aiming at the same breaking point. So before the recap starts at the beginning, here is the quick shape of the journey. If you want more full story recaps like this, like, comment, and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. A desperate hand reaches from the void, whispering a final plea for survival. Suo's manic grin splits his face as he claims the title of the 33rd Demon Lord, snapping his fingers to drag Noah into a storming abyss. Noah squares up, roaring his name as the eldest son of the Francis family, but the air violently twists, swallowing him whole. Suo's pink eyes blaze with lethal intent, shattering the confrontation and unleashing absolute oblige to drag a hooded figure into a swirling, blood-red void. As the figure plummets, Suo's voice echoes a dark promise to show them the true strength of this deadly world. From the encroaching darkness, a lone hand reaches out with a desperate plea. "I'm counting on you." Noah thrusts his massive fist forward, roaring about his muscles as he charges headfirst into the fray. The brutal reality of his new life crashes into focus. He's been reincarnated as this world's most scummy noble, and he's ready to use his brute strength to smash through every thug in his way. Standing out front of the sprawling Francis estate, Noah smirks and crushes his bicep in a hard flex, showing off his raw, bulging power. Down in the training yard, a worried servant sweats as he watches Noah perch casually on the wooden hurdles, asking if he's really sure about this crazy stunt. Noah just flashes a confident grin and tells him to watch. A massive boulder shuttle charges toward Noah, but he stands completely unfazed, declaring he's going to layer fire magic over his current spell. He channels mana directly through his physical body to massively boost his raw power, roaring, "Strength!" before conjuring a blazing magic circle and shouting, "Fire!" Noah tries to ignite the spell, but all that sputters from his palm is a pathetic, tiny puff of smoke. He stares at it in disbelief, letting out a heavy sigh as the brutal reality check hits. He can massively boost his physical strength, but actual elemental fire is completely beyond his garbage magic stats. The servant sprints across the lawn in a panic, but Noah is just sitting casually in the grass, completely unbothered. His mind flashes to his little sister Kiara, happily cheering him on, but before he can bask in the moment, a tiny blur of frills launches herself at him. On! Sama!" Kiara screams, tackling him full force and violently squishing his face as he yells at her to watch it. Kiara beams at him, begging him to play now that his brutal training is done, but Noah sweats bullets and stammers out a weak excuse about studying. Kiara stops dead, shocked by the deflection since he used to despise both exercise and books, but instead of pressing him, she just sits beside him in the grass. She looks at him with soft, admiring eyes and tells him he's changed, leaving Noah completely thrown off by the gentle shift in her tone. Kiara bounces up, extracting a firm promise that he has to play with her tomorrow before cheering him on to do his best. Noah sits in the grass, left completely speechless by her pure support as a heavy realization washes over him. His safe, repetitive routine as a lazy kid is gone forever, he's trapped in a deadly world, and the person he used to be is completely dead. A frantic voice screams, "Noah-sama!" as Noah jolts awake in a massive bed, staring in total confusion at the servants rushing to his side. The grim reality of his situation snaps into focus. He's inside the twisted realm of absolute oblige, and he's been reincarnated as its foulest, most despicable villain. Noah Francis himself. Lord Francis is disgustingly rich, sitting atop mountains of money and arrogantly solving every problem by just throwing cash at it. But that obscene wealth masks a nasty tongue and a completely twisted personality, cementing his status as the absolute worst scum among villain nobles. No matter what path he walks, all that power means nothing because Noah Francis always ends up getting brutally killed by the Demon Lord. In the twisted memories of his past life, Noah was completely flattened by gravity magic, crushed into a pathetic smear so humiliating that nobles mock him with a Noah die trinket. But his expression hardens with pure defiance. He refuses to die in this world, and there is no way in hell he's letting himself get crushed. With zero natural talent, he pushes his body through grueling, punishing workouts, sprinting with explosive speed and roaring that he needs to become stronger. Noah lunges forward, his fist tearing through the air as he screams his ultimate survival strategy, fighting alongside the hero to defeat the demon lord. The manic energy crashes into the quiet darkness of the Francis estate, where Noah sits alone at the head of a massive dining table. He asks where Kiara is, and a maid gently informs him she's getting ready as he waits in the quiet room. The imposing Francis family butler Sebas stands ready and asks what should be done with a slave, but Noah's mind instantly flips to the hidden lore of this world. He knows Sebas isn't just a servant, but a former highly skilled assassin bought for a massive sum who secretly hides and helps slaves escape instead of executing them. Noah quietly acknowledges the butler's hidden streak of mercy, realizing the truth beneath the ruthless exterior. The maids bring up the slave who slighted Noah, coldly asking if she should just execute the prisoner, and Noah completely freaks out. Screaming that they must not kill the slave under any circumstance, he frantically backpedals and flails his hands, blowing his cover as the ruthless villain. Sebas stares in absolute shock, but Noah quickly regains his composure and delivers an unprecedented order: release the slave and hire them for a job instead. Sebas is completely thrown off, sweating as he admits he never imagined the young master showing an ounce of mercy, but then he drops a brutal reality check. Standing in the dining hall, the butler rattles off a horrific list of the original Noah's atrocities, detailing executions for spilling wine, blocking a hallway, and mispronouncing his name. Noah sits at the table, sweating bullets and dead inside, crushed by the sickening realization that his predecessor was truly the absolute worst. Still reeling from the horrific list of crimes, Noah does the unthinkable by bowing his head with an awkward smile and actually apologizing to Sebas and the maids. The maids' eyes bug out in sheer shock, completely short-circuiting at the concept of the tyrant showing gratitude, and one instantly screams that he must be fatally ill. But Sebas isn't panicking. The former assassin stares at his young master with a piercing gaze, realizing Noah is trying to change and hardening his resolve. The massive trainer sprints alongside Noah, roaring that he needs to see the young master's progress, while Sebas pushes his own limits right beside them. Noah feels a genuine shift in their dynamic, shouting the ridiculous muscle power chant right back at the thundering squad. But as Sebas watches Noah's earnest face, the hardened assassin's thoughts take a bizarre turn, genuinely believing the boy is looking at him with the adoring affection of a grandchild. Noah grunts and strains, locking arms with the massive bald trainer who compliments his serious muscle gains despite pushing him to his absolute limit. A glowing mana status flickers to life in his mind, revealing he's hit level 4 with C ranks in stamina, attack and speed, and a pathetic D+ in magic. Seeing those stats climb makes him realize he's grown this strong thanks to the crazy monsters working at the mansion, just as a voice calls out to him. The massive trainer looms over Noah, flexing a bicep the size of a boulder and barking that his back and arms are lagging behind. Noah grits his teeth, violently pumping out dips on the parallel bars with a physique visibly more hardened and dazzling than before. But as Sebas watches this grueling transformation, his eye narrows with fanatical realization. Noah is getting stronger, but he still completely fails to understand the true charm of muscles. The trainer drops into a dead serious pose, flexing his massive bicep and telling Noah it's time to talk with our muscles to shatter his limits. Nearby, the monstrous squad finishes their sets without breaking a sweat, complaining they didn't use enough weight and demanding Noah jump right back into the grinder. Noah stands looking absolutely tiny and terrified as the wall of muscle summons him. The trainer drags a nervous Noah in front of a full-length mirror, forcing him to stare at his incredibly shredded and bulky reflection. The muscle-bound squad surrounds him, roaring their approval and praising his massive gains, while Sebas cheers from the sidelines. The initial shock melts into pure bliss as Noah breaks into a stupidly happy grin, realizing that feeling this powerful just feels really, really good. Fresh off his mere flex, Noah doesn't get a second to bask in his gains before the trainer declares his love for muscles has been conveyed and demands a run. The ground shatters as the monster squad explodes forward in a blistering sprint, leaving Noah scrambling to keep up as their backs pull away. Gritting his teeth with fierce defiance, he roars that he won't lose, his feet pounding the dirt as he desperately chases them down. Noah roars strength and channels his mana to push his physical limits, genuinely impressing the massive trainer. But the giant's competitive fire flares up, causing him to accidentally push himself to go completely all out and shatter the pace. The trainer's face instantly drops into sheer panic as he realizes his fatal mistake. He went way too hard, and Noah absolutely cannot keep up with this monstrous speed. Noah bursts back into view, sweat flying and a fierce, defiant grin plastered across his face as he roars that he caught up. He doesn't complain for a single second, just keeps sporting that relentless smile and working his body to the bone to surpass his limits. The massive trainer's eyes go wide in sheer awe, feeling an overwhelming raw talent for hard work radiating off the young master as their thundering footsteps shake the ground. Sprawled across his bed, Noah kicks his feet in the air, giggling uncontrollably at the sheer joy of his newfound physical power. Pulling up his mana status, he sees that unlocking Strength triggered a flood of new skills, including level 2 Appraisal and Flash Step, plus level 1 Detection and Parallel Thought. He grins at his boosted base stats, basking in his victory lap just as the bedroom door suddenly clicks open. Noah's quiet victory lap gets violently interrupted when Kiara launches herself at him, screaming for him to play because she's sick of waiting. Blindsided by the tackle, a terrified Noah tries to dodge her clinginess by weakly insisting he has studying to do, realizing she sounds exactly like a needy girlfriend. Before he can process the absurdity, a man bursts into the room, excitedly shouting that he's just invented a brand new way for Noah to train. The enthusiastic trainer tries to drag both siblings into his new regimen, but Noah flatly shuts him down before the playful mood evaporates. Kiara asks if he's noticed his own smile lately, then drops the heavy truth about the original Noah's legacy. The mansion staff was absolutely petrified of her brother. They were so terrified of his cruelty that they wouldn't even look Kiara in the eyes, leaving her completely isolated by the monster he used to be. Kiara's voice carries the painful memory of the day the original Noah's cruelty triggered a mass exodus of the staff, and tears prick her eyes as she swears she never wants that isolation again. But the heavy silence shatters when a staff member steps in with a warm smile, revealing the atmosphere has completely transformed and the staff now respects him. Kiara suddenly throws her arms around Noah, burying her face into him and nuzzling affectionately, leaving him completely caught off guard by her overwhelming affection. Kiara clings to Noah, tears pricking her eyes as she whispers that she's so glad, leaving him frozen by the raw vulnerability in her voice. With their mother gone and their father absent, Kiara had only ever trusted Noah, but the original monster's legacy left her with nothing but painful memories. Noah's gaze hardens into fierce resolve, understanding that her happiness rests on his shoulders as he makes a silent vow to become the proper older brother she deserves. A bright memory surfaces of a young Kiara beaming with joy, happily calling out, "Ni-chan." Noah's gaze sharpens into a fierce, unblinking stare as he makes a silent, ironclad vow to protect her. His hand clenches tightly over his chest, knuckles turning white with the sheer weight of his promise. Noah rips his shirt off, beaming with pride as he flexes his shredded physique and roars about his training, making Kiara's face erupt into a bright red blush. She screams in total embarrassment, demanding to know why the hell he's stripping right in front of her, before asking if he knows what the servants have been calling him lately. Noah's confident grin shatters into nervous sweat as he stammers out a guess, completely flustered. Kiara absolutely loses it, screaming, "Muscle idiot!" and storming off to slam the bedroom door right in his face. She peeks back through the crack to mutter a final, flustered idiot, leaving Noah bewildered as his outstretched hand slowly clenches into a tight fist. He feels a pang of guilt, but his resolve hardens. He's discovered how fun muscle training is, and he needs it to become stronger. Noah drives his fist forward, a sharp smirk cutting across his face as he refuses to just be a muscle idiot. He's going to become a super muscle idiot. Down the long hallway, Kiara walks away but pauses to look back with a soft, trusting smile. She giggles, whispering for her big brother to protect her. Kiara strolls down the hallway, giggling to herself about the warmth of hearing her brother call himself Ni-chan, but that tender peace is instantly shattered. She's violently yanked backward and slammed to the floor, her eyes going wide with sheer panic as massive, tree-trunk arms pin her down. Desperate, she tries to cry out, but nothing but a muffled squeak escapes her lips. She's completely paralyzed and trapped under the crushing weight. A maid pauses in the corridor, catching a glimpse of Kiara sprinting away and tilting her head at the sound of her voice. But the quiet doesn't last as the rhythmic booming chants of "muscle power, yeah, yeah, yeah" suddenly echo through the estate. The heavy clank of massive dumbbells rings out. Noah is already back to his relentless training. Sprawled flat on the wooden floor, Noah gasps for air among scattered dumbbells, reminding himself that rest is just as important as the grind. But his newly unlocked detection skill isn't sitting idle. It silently blankets the mansion, making the staff hyper-aware of every single presence around them. Even a hooded figure outside pauses, sensing the sudden, invisible shift in the air. A hooded figure slings an unconscious Kiara over their shoulder, dragging her away into the dark while Noah's eyes go wide with pure horror. The piece of his training is instantly obliterated as he tears up the staircase, bare-chested and roaring in blind fury. A servant desperately pounds on his door, screaming that Kiara has been kidnapped, and the sheer shock of the news hits Noah like a physical blow. Noah bursts through the door, radiating blind panic and screaming that they need to save Kiara right now. Sabas reveals he felt the abduction with his own detection skill, but drops a devastating reality check. Every single guard has been wiped out by a highly skilled opponent. Sabas begs Noah to stay behind, but Noah violently cuts him off, grabbing his gear and roaring that he's the one going, his eyes locked on the path ahead with unbreakable resolve. Noah's eyes burn with absolute focus, refusing to hesitate as he declares that Kiara is waiting for him. Realizing he can't stop the kid, Sabas falls in step beside him, allowing himself to accompany the rescue. Noah flashes a quick, grateful thanks, but Sabas's expression remains grim as he makes a solemn vow. If Noah falters, he will take the lead. Noah and Sebas tear down the corridor and burst out into the sprawling Francis estate under the dark night sky. But the moment they hit the wooded ground, Sebas violently skids to a halt and screams a frantic warning to look above. Noah freezes, his fierce resolve instantly shattering into wide-eyed shock as he stares up into the darkness. Noah's scream of pure horror tears through the night as he spots a tiny silhouette holding Kiara at the top of a towering, sheer cliff face. The hooded kidnapper effortlessly scales the vertical rock wall, putting impossible distance between them, and Sabas shouts that they'll have to go around. But Noah isn't looking for a path. He sprints straight at the unscalable rock wall, roaring that they're climbing the cliff as he channels his mana into his physical body. Noah rockets up the vertical cliff face, his voice tearing through the night air as he screams for Sabas, who roars back with fierce loyalty. With a deafening crack, the solid rock shatters and caves in beneath their boots as they defy gravity, rocketing straight up the impossible drop. They turn the sheer, unscalable cliff into their personal battleground, launching themselves into the sky to reach Kiara. Noah's boots slam into the dirt as he sprints forward, his voice tearing from his throat in a raw, desperate scream to let Kiara go. Bound and gagged, Kiara's eyes are wide with terror, tears spilling over as she weakly whimpers for her big brother. The hooded kidnapper doesn't even flinch, deciding to take Noah on completely alone as they square off for a brutal showdown. The kidnapper steps into the light, casually adjusting his cloak and greeting the feral boy with a chillingly polite, "Long time no see, Noah-sama." Noah skids to a halt in sheer confusion, demanding to know who he is, and the man reveals he used to work for the Francis family as a guard. The man's polite facade shatters into a vicious glare, his voice trembling with venom as the ghost of the original Noah's cruel legacy steps out of the shadows to collect a blood debt. The former guard's face twists into a mask of pure hatred, screaming that Noah Francis had him executed and swearing he will never forgive that sin. Noah's mind races, realizing the blood debt is very real since Sebas didn't secretly free everyone after all. But there's no time to process the ghost of his predecessor's cruelty. Reasoning is useless, and he needs to focus entirely on ripping his sister away from this vengeful ghost. Noah's eye widens in sheer panic as his appraisal skill activates, projecting the guard's stats and revealing every single number is higher than his own. The crushing realization sets in instantly. As he is right now, there is absolutely no way he can win. The guard sneers, asking if he's scared and mocking his isolation, pointing out that without his lackeys, he can't do a single thing on his own. Kiara's terrified eyes stare out from her gag as the guard's venomous voice cuts through the night, screaming that Noah is just a piece of trash. Standing over her bound form, the former guard sneers at Noah and asks if he even knows what the mansion staff calls him. Noah's face twists in furious rage, his fist clenching as the man delivers the final, crushing insult. He's known as the talentless, undignified pest of the Francis family. The former guard unleashes a relentless barrage, screaming that Noah can kill someone with a single word and declaring that pests like him should be crushed for the sake of the world. The man's voice peaks in a deafening roar, calling Noah a piece of trash and a naked emperor that nobody loves. Beneath the crushing weight of this absolute hatred, Noah is left completely speechless, his wide, trembling eye filling with unshed tears. Kiara's muffled screams shatter the silence as she thrashes against her restraints, her mind locking onto her brother through her tears. The brutal insults mean nothing to her. She knows the crushing weight he's carried as the Francis heir, and how the nobles constantly mocked him. But beneath all that cruelty, she saw what no one else did. He never gave up, and he kept trying his best. Spit and blood spray through the air as the guard violently backhands Kiara. She goes flying, crumpling to the ground. Noah screams his sister's name, eyes blown wide in horror. The guard looms over her fallen form, dark magic crackling at his fingertips, sneering that Noah is twisted scum and to blame for everything. Battered and bleeding, Kiara refuses to stay silent. Through her tears, she screams her absolute truth. He is her beloved Oni-sama. The fierce loyalty hits Noah like a physical blow, paralyzing him. But the guard doesn't soften. His jaw clenches as he admits a dark, trembling confession. He can never forgive himself for executing Kiara's friend. Noah completely drops his guard, accepting his fate. He tells the man he understands the hatred and doesn't mind dying right now. The guard is utterly thrown off, screaming in disbelief. Kiara watches in sheer terror, screaming her brother's name as a massive, devastating fist tears through the air, closing in fast. Noah's eyes burn with a fierce, unyielding glare as he delivers a chilling ultimatum. He will never forgive the guard if he makes Kiara cry one more tear. But the guard isn't listening. A figure suddenly strides through the dark forest, screaming for the guard to let her go. The former guard's restraint completely shatters. Sweating and desperate, he seizes Kiara, threatening to slaughter her right in front of Noah to make him feel the exact same agony. Realizing there's no other way, Noah's face falls into a dark, shadowed glare. He makes a heavy, irreversible decision, muttering for Kiara to hang in there just a little while longer. Noah completely ignores the deadly standoff and drops into a squat. Screaming for muscle power, he starts aggressively pumping out warm-up reps. Kiara stares in sheer bewilderment, unable to process why he's working out right now. The guard's face contorts in absolute fury at the blatant disrespect, lunging forward with a massive, crushing hand to obliterate the boy. A colossal tree trunk violently explodes into a million splinters. The sheer force of the invisible shockwave sends Noah flying backward. He stares at the obliterated wreckage in absolute horror. The guard didn't even physically touch the wood. The man's hand radiates dark, crushing energy as he reveals he has done nothing but train this single, devastating skill for revenge. The guard's dark aura erupts into two colossal, shadowy hands that loom over the clearing. He unleashes his ultimate technique, Restraints Level 10, bringing the full, tree-shattering weight of his power to bear. Faced with this overwhelming pressure, Noah doesn't try to stand his ground. He bolts, sprinting away in a desperate, full-speed retreat while the guard throws his head back in a manic laugh. A colossal shadow fist connects, obliterating Noah's defenses and launching him backward with bone-jarring force. He skids to a brutal halt in the dirt, coughing and groaning. The former guard strolls forward, a monstrous shadowy beast looming behind him, mocking Noah's earlier bravado. Battered and bleeding, Noah claws into the dirt and forces out a strained acknowledgement. The man is strong. Battered on the ground, Noah's eyes burn with fierce resolve. He declares he's worked harder than anyone to become the man who defeats the Demon Lord. The former guard swings a massive, crushing shadow arm at him, screaming in rage at his nonsense. But Noah refuses to break, gritting his teeth as he braces against the incoming blow. He absolutely refuses to die here in the prologue. Noah screams that he will become stronger, channeling every ounce of his willpower into his signature spell. He roars, "Strength!" flooding his battered body with mana to push past his breaking point. The sheer force of his resolve creates a massive shockwave, but the guard just twists into a manic sneer, demanding Noah die right now. Noah doesn't just brace for the lethal blow, he vanishes. With an explosive burst of speed, he roars, "Flash step!" and launches himself forward. The guard's devastating strike slams into the ground, completely obliterating the earth where Noah just stood. Panic completely shatters the guard's vengeful facade as he stares at the empty crater, screaming internally that this is impossible. The former guard's eyes go completely wide, sweat pouring down his face as a single breathless thought escapes him, fast. Above him, Noah sails through the air, wooden sword gripped tight. He's not just dodging, he's completely transcending his past. Noah's voice roars out, shattering the guard's disbelief, declaring he's a man who rebelled against his own weak self and smashed past his limits. Noah hurtles through the air, his eyes locked onto his target with lethal focus. He roars his title into the sky. He is the heir of the Francis family. Noah's strike connects with catastrophic force, erupting into a blinding shockwave that violently blasts the former guard backward. The sheer, overwhelming power of the impact screams through the air, his name roaring across the battlefield as he shatters his opponent's defenses in one devastating blow. The former guard sits broken in the dirt, screaming for Noah to just kill him so he can join his friend in the next life. Noah looks down at the pathetic sight, silently wondering what to do. Suddenly, he spots an approaching figure and sprints over, calling out to Sabas. The massive butler reaches him, staring down at the defeated guard with cold judgment. Sabas's aura flares with terrifying, murderous intent. He demands the ultimate punishment for the man who threatened Kiara, declaring simple torture isn't enough. Noah casually shuts him down, pointing out that since Kiara is completely unharmed, there's no need to go that far. He then flashes a bright smile and asks if Sabas secretly let all the people he previously ordered executed go free. Sabas stares in stunned disbelief, realizing the boy saw right through his quiet act of mercy. Standing over the bound guard, Noah casually drops a bombshell. The man's friend is actually alive and well. The guard's eyes go wide, his voice cracking in desperate disbelief. Noah's expression hardens with absolute certainty, guaranteeing it. The sheer weight of the news shatters the guard's vengeful facade completely, and he breaks down sobbing in pure, overwhelming relief. Shouts pierce the dark woods as the other servants finally track them down. Kiara asks what they should tell the approaching group. Beneath the vast starry night sky, Noah spins a simple, innocent lie, declaring they just sneaked out to look at the stars. He flashes a bright smile at Sebas, asking the giant man to back up his story. Sebas stares down at him, his tough exterior cracking as he mutters in quiet awe that Noah has really changed. Strolling through the woods, Noah brushes off his transformation, admitting he's always been a bit odd, and maybe he's just been changing all along. He glances back over his shoulder with a bright, unbothered grin, declaring that these days, he's just a muscle-loving noble. Noah scoops Kiara up into his arms, cheerfully declaring it's time to head home. She squirms in his grip, flustered and demanding he put her down, but Noah just laughs, completely ignoring her protests. The group makes their way back through the dark woods, the deadly tension of the night's ambush completely washed away by his bright, unbothered energy. A servant drops a massive bombshell on a young noblewoman named Cecil. She has been officially engaged to Noah. Cecil calmly opens the formal notice, but instead of reacting with horror at being betrothed to the game's most despicable villain, she looks genuinely curious, wondering what kind of person he actually is. Meanwhile, completely oblivious to his new fiancée, Noah is out in the freezing cold, shivering and sneezing. Sipping tea in the garden, Noah fully accepts his reality. He's been living in the Fantasy Academy game Absolute Oblige for a few months now, fully inhabiting the body of its most villainous noble. But as Seba stands guard, Noah's thoughts turn serious. Seba steps forward, his face hardening with dead seriousness, and tells Noah it's about time. A massive bald trainer and a shirtless Noah stand shoulder to shoulder, striking a synchronized pose as they flex their bulging biceps with absolute pride. Noah's eyes sparkle with pure, manic joy as he throws his head back, screaming to the heavens just how absolutely wonderful muscles are. A mountain of pure, glistening muscle dominates the room. The massive trainer stands locked in a flawless, sparkling flex, his bicep bulging with terrifying, godlike proportions. A servant clutching a tray stumbles into the room and completely short-circuits, his jaw dropping to the floor as his brain melts trying to process the sheer scale of the flesh in front of him. Noah and his mountain of muscle trainers are wrapping up a brutal workout when a nervous servant hands him a sealed letter from his father. Noah casually breaks the wax seal, but the moment his eyes hit the text, his relaxed demeanor completely shatters. His eye widens in sheer shock as the devastating news sinks in. His fiancée has been officially chosen, and it's Cecil Edward. Cecil Edward stands before her family crest, introduced as Noah's fiancée, a stunningly beautiful and brilliant love interest from the game. In about 2 years, Noah will begin attending Absolute Academy, where he is destined to meet Cecil for the very first time. In the game's original timeline, the engagement is doomed. Cecil completely falls for the hero at the Academy, despising Noah's villainous reputation and ruthlessly breaking off their betrothal with a devastating insult. Reading those exact words in the present, Noah just lets out a weak, hollow chuckle. The sheer emotional damage instantly drops him to the floor, collapsing into a pile of absolute despair at the hypothetical rejection. Lying on the floor, Noah forces himself to shake off the crushing weight of that hypothetical rejection. He makes a tactical decision. He will completely avoid Cecil until they officially meet at the Academy. But hiding doesn't solve his biggest problem. To survive the game's fatal ending, he has to defeat the Demon Lord. He hits the dirt, sprinting fiercely alongside his 2 mountain-sized trainers, launching himself into a brutal new regimen of special muscle training. Lion, an A-rank adventurer and Noah's sword instructor, strides into view in a sweeping coat. He looks down at his student with a calm, measured gaze, noting that Noah could have just rested until their scheduled lesson. But Noah just flashes a nervous, sweaty grin, brushing off the concern and insisting he's completely fine. Noah enthusiastically reports that he crushed his 100 practice swing homework, but Lion's calm demeanor shatters when he looks at the floor. Resting there is a massive, jagged boulder wrapped in thick ropes, with a sword handle protruding from the stone. Lion asks in sheer disbelief if Noah actually used that thing, and Noah just beams with pride, giving a thumbs up. Lion tells Noah that as the heir, he needs to be able to handle at least that much. Noah just laughs, calling his instructor as strict as ever, but his eyes are blazing with excitement. He shouts that he needs to get much stronger than he is right now. His 2 mountain-sized trainers step up, declaring they'll join him, and Noah eagerly dives right back into the grind. Noah and his 2 mountain-sized trainers are absolutely destroying themselves, screaming as they power through 20 grueling laps of bunny jumps, each hauling a ridiculously heavy wooden block. An observer watches the brutal display, realizing the kid holds absolutely nothing back. Noah isn't just going through the motions, he's constantly grinding and pushing his own limits to reach even greater heights. Lion's calm, measured facade completely shatters. Inside his head, he's absolutely screaming with pride, completely starstruck by the pure heart of a noble who actually puts in the work. While other nobles would slack off, Noah went and added even more weight to his absurd training. Lion's mind short-circuits into pure obsession, internally shrieking about his crazy, dedicated student. Noah is drenched in sweat, pushing his body to the absolute brink, but the woman watching him isn't just impressed, she's completely captivated. Her eyes burn with intense, almost obsessive devotion as she silently vows to stand by his side forever. The intense moment instantly snaps when she looks down at a collapsed figure groaning weakly in the dirt, coldly asking how long they plan to keep lying there. Freesia, Noah's magic teacher, is completely drained and collapsed on the ground, utterly terrified by the sheer insanity of her student. The nightmare started when Noah cheerfully asked her to blast him with her most powerful magic, and then immediately launched into grueling bunny hops with a boulder sword. Now, a traumatized Freesia is venting to Sabas, screaming about how creepy Noah's masochistic training regimen is. Spotting his magic teacher finally coming to, Noah cheerfully waves, completely oblivious to her trauma. He strikes a massive, shirtless flex, beaming with pure enthusiasm as he casually asks if she wants to join his muscle training. Leaning in with a wide, almost manic grin, he pitches the workout, promising it'll build muscle and boost her stamina, leaving Freesia staring back in absolute wide-eyed horror. The two mountain-sized trainers casually observe Noah's workout, and the moment he confirms he's doing muscle training, they immediately decide to join in. Noah and his two behemoths strike a massive, synchronized double bicep flex, turning to his traumatized magic teacher and cheerfully shouting for her to come join them. Before she can even process the sheer insanity, she's physically grabbed, screaming at the top of her lungs and sprinting away in a blind panic. After fleeing Noah's insane muscle training, Freesia finds herself standing with Lion. He looks at her with quiet sincerity, addressing her as the greatest mage in the entire territory and insisting they would be completely hopeless without her. Freesia's brain completely short-circuits. The sheer praise from the man she admires sends her into a total tailspin, her face erupting in a furious blush as she stares at him, utterly love-struck. Freesia stares in absolute horror at a massive wooden vat sloshing with liquid. It's a monstrous concoction brewed from 30 whole bottles of mana potion. Sabas calmly presents the absurd tub to her, declaring that she is a vital pillar supporting Noah's growth. Sweating bullets, she stammers that it's way too much, but Sabas just leans in with a terrifying, shadow-drenched smile, commanding her to drink every single drop. Freesia's agonizing scream echoes across the estate, her sheer despair over the monstrous mana potion bleeding into the air. Out in the training yard, Lion completely ignores the distant hysteria, calmly announcing that it's time for a sparring match. A confident female warrior steps up to face him, resting a sword on her shoulder and flashing a sharp, challenging smile. Gripping his own blade, Noah locks in and shouts that he's absolutely ready. The female warrior brings her blade down in a vicious, sweeping arc, but Noah is already moving. He launches himself forward, slamming his shield up just in time to catch the brutal strike. The warrior smirks, praising his form, but Noah's eyes are locked in, completely unfazed. He grips his sword tight and coolly fires back that her timing is too simple, proving he's already reading her every move. Noah barely twists out of the way as the female warrior's blade slices through the air where he just stood. She pauses, genuinely surprised by his reflexes, and admits he's pretty good. Noah is sweating bullets, internally panicking that he barely managed to dodge it. The warrior's expression shifts as she looks toward the Francis estate, quietly admitting she used to look down on the family but is depressed by how wrong she was. A new instructor is already regretting his life choices, muttering about why he had to accept a job teaching the eldest son of the nasty Francis family. When he spots the imposing Lion waiting at the gate, he nervously asks for the way. As they walk, the instructor's dread deepens, terrified by the rumors that Noah executes slaves. He figures he can just run away, but Lion casually shuts down that escape route, reminding him this specific post is inescapable. Noah flashes a blinding, eager smile, enthusiastically introducing himself and declaring how nice it is to meet his new instructor. He immediately drops into a deep, respectful bow, begging them not to hold back and promising he won't complain no matter how brutal the training gets. The new instructor is completely paralyzed by the sight, his mind short-circuiting as he wonders if this is really the same monstrous Noah Francis from the rumors. Some guys are laughing Noah off as nothing more than a useless noble, but a sharp, watchful eye sees right through the lies. Down in the dirt, Noah is grinding through his sword and shield training with fierce, relentless determination. The new instructor watches this insane work ethic and his entire worldview shatters. He fiercely declares that the real Noah is an incredibly hard worker and a wonderful person, completely won over. Noah is completely winded, chest heaving and sweat pouring down his face as he pushes through another grueling spar. But beneath the exhaustion, his eyes burn with a terrifying, laser-focused resolve. He can feel his daily, brutal training is actually working. He locks his sights on Lion, completely abandoning any thought of fancy tricks, silently vowing to strike him with every single ounce of his raw, hard-earned might. Noah channels raw strength into his blade while simultaneously activating parallel thought, his eyes locking onto his target with terrifying, hyper-focused intensity. The sheer absurdity of the combination completely shatters Lion's composure. Staring at his student in sheer disbelief, Lion demands to know when the hell Noah learned to stack both techniques at the exact same time. Noah screams, "Flash step," and vanishes from his stance, reappearing instantly in midair with his sword raised for a devastating strike. Lion's eyes widen in sheer shock at the explosive burst of speed, his mind racing as he realizes he's completely trapped and can't dodge the incoming blow. Just as Noah's flash step carries him into the air for a devastating strike, a magic circle flares and a calm, composed swordsman materializes directly in his path. Moving with eerie, shadow-like speed, this serene figure effortlessly intercepts the blow. Noah's eyes widen in sheer shock, his ferocious momentum completely halted by this unexpected opponent who appeared out of nowhere. Noah's strike cleaves empty air. The shadow vanishes, reappearing instantly to shatter the stone wall with a deafening counterblow, and before Noah can even blink, a cold blade stops a hair's breadth from his eye. He is completely trapped. The dust clears, revealing the terrifying shadow figure is just Sebas. The Francis family butler stands over his pinned master with a smug smile, casually claiming the victory, and a sweating, completely outmatched Noah has no choice but to close his eyes and concede. Lion breaks down the sheer absurdity of the technique, explaining how Noah stacks strength and flash step using parallel thought. Kneeling in the dirt, Noah admits his teacher vanished too fast to track, prompting Lion to smirk and drop his real identity, A-rank adventurer, Lion the Shadow. Lion admits his untouchable speed is actually a cheat-level bloodline magic, leaving Noah to slump in defeat. But the master quickly shifts gears, praising Noah for mastering strength and parallel thought in record time, and that genuine approval instantly shatters the boy's disappointment into a massive, thrilled grin. Watching Noah's meek obedience, the new instructor completely melts, gently warning the boy not to push himself too hard. But beneath the affection, a darker thought lingers. He desperately wants to build the kid's confidence, because being the submissive will only breed fatal weakness. Scrapping the magic lesson entirely, the female instructor proposes a trip to the Adventurers Guild instead. Noah awkwardly laughs off his useless magic stats and agrees to go, lying awake in the dark that night as he quietly turns the idea over in his mind. Pure excitement over visiting the guild in real life keeps Noah staring at the ceiling all night. By morning, his eyes are dead and hollow from total sleep deprivation, forcing a servant to wake him up and note he hasn't looked this zombified since an elementary school trip. Noah shuffles out the door like a walking corpse, letting out a jaw-cracking yawn as Sebas leads the way. The butler points out the jarring difference between this reality and the game, asking if his master is still half asleep, since a trip to the guild used to happen in an instant. The bustling guild district comes alive as the female instructor guides Noah to a massive rack of blades. She recommends a heavy sword for his muscular build, but a specific hilt catches his eye, and his hands wrap tightly around the grip, instantly drawn to the weapon's perfect balance. Noah grips the katana with pure, unfiltered hype, thrusting it forward and declaring it feels completely right. He drops a bizarre, out-of-place mutter about being Japanese, leaving the instructor completely thrown off before she shakes off the awkward moment and takes the lead into the guild. A desperate village boy clutches a handwritten letter, begging an adventurer for help against an impending wolf attack. The adventurer eyes the messy handwriting with a bead of sweat, wondering if the kid actually wrote it himself, and admits he can't be entirely sure the boy isn't lying. The adventurer presses the kid about petitioning the local lords, only for the boy to bitterly admit the Francis family ignored them. The brute casually trashes the Francis heir, repeating vicious rumors that Noah is an unruly mess and the city is doomed, while a hooded Noah sweats and internally winces at the brutal roast. Seeing the town in person makes it painfully clear. His predecessor's monstrous misdeeds trashed the Francis name so thoroughly that a peasant revolt could easily trigger a fatal bad ending. Gripping his hood in sheer panic, Noah screams internally that he needs to restore his honor immediately, just as the adventurer coldly brushes off the desperate boy. The towering adventurer looms over the terrified boy, his massive frame casting a suffocating shadow as scattered coins clatter uselessly across the floor. Without a shred of hesitation, the brute steps right through the plea, shoving the kid to his hands and knees and coldly snarling that he's in the way. The brute's heavy boot slams into the floorboards just inches from the cowering child, the violent impact shaking the room. Under his hood, Noah's fist clenches tight, his face darkening with a cold, barely contained rage that makes the adventurer suddenly freeze and glance back with a sharp, startled look. Lion drops to his knees, gently checking on the terrified village boy while the brute, Hashbart, looms behind them. The gentle moment shatters as Lion rises, locking eyes with the brute and coldly noting that Hashbart hasn't changed a bit, the air thickening with lethal tension as the hooded instructor steps forward. Noah stands completely shirtless in the middle of the guild, grinning wildly as he flexes his massive biceps and declares his muscles are the ultimate armor. Sabaz politely reminds his master that wandering around half-naked is a great way to catch a cold, while across the room, Hashbart stares in absolute horror, finally realizing the hooded figure is Noah Francis. Hashbart's face contorts in absolute horror as the guild erupts into whispers of pure shock, staring at the muscular teen who just saved the boy. The little village boy looks up, his mind short-circuiting at the overwhelming presence of his savior, while a completely oblivious Noah steps forward and casually calls out, "Hey!" Hashbart looms over Noah, getting right in his face and snarling about what a piece of trash Noble is doing in their town. Noah just stares back in dead silence, his expression hardening as he takes the insult, while Lion and the village boy watch the tense standoff from the side. Hashbart spits the word trash with pure venom, while Sebas watches with a grim expression, silently acknowledging this is exactly how the world perceives his master. Ignoring the insult, Noah calmly explains he's just here for an excursion, prompting Hashbart to burst into loud, mocking laughter and roar that it's a hilarious joke coming from a noble who supposedly killed dozens of slaves. Hashbart leans in with a manic grin, ruthlessly tearing into Noah's reputation and calling him a talentless coward who could never complete a guild request. The surrounding adventurers start to sweat, realizing the brute is crossing a massive line and might get them all killed, but Noah just stands there in silence, taking the verbal beating without a single word. Noah's wide, unblinking eyes lock onto Hashbart in a dead, heavy stare. The brute adventurer actually flinches, a bead of sweat rolling down his face as he snaps and demands to know why Noah is looking at him like that, the sheer, suffocating weight of the blank gaze turning the tables and making the man who just ruthlessly mocked him sweat under the pressure. The crowd's focus locks onto Noah's quadriceps and trapezius, but the reaction isn't awe. It's pure outrage. An observer screams in absolute horror that the muscle quality is incredibly low, wailing that Noah didn't shower his physique with love and calling it a complete waste. Noah beams with a blissful, totally unhinged smile, blushing as he cheerfully decides the harsh criticism just means his physique is superior. Lion stares at him, utterly baffled and screaming to know what the hell is wrong with him, while a completely unfazed Noah ignores Hashbart shouting after them and cheerfully tells his teacher it's time to go. Lion confidently declares that Noah could complete any request in the guild without his help. The village boy crouches defensively, shouting back that Lion is just running his mouth until a massive foot slams down with earth-shaking force, violently crushing the request paper flat against the floorboards. Hashbart keeps his massive boot planted firmly on the crushed paper, taunting the groaning boy on the floor. His mockery cuts off as Leon steps into his line of sight, issuing a quiet but absolute command to move his foot, and when the brute challenges him, Leon's expression darkens into pure, lethal intent as his hand violently clamps down on the man's ankle. Lion's grip locks onto the brute's ankle like a vice. Glaring with lethal, shadowed intensity, he delivers a quiet but absolute command to get his foot off the kid's stuff, while beneath the heavy boot, the village boy scrambles on the floorboards, desperately reaching for his crushed request paper. Hashbart casually dismisses the crushed request as a filthy scrap of paper and flat out refuses to budge. He mocks Lion's slender frame, sneering that moving his massive body with such a delicate build is a tall order, but Lion doesn't flinch, his hand clamping down with terrifying, inescapable pressure to accept the challenge. Noah effortlessly hoists the massive brute Hashbart high into the air, roaring about his muscle power as the giant flails and screams in pure terror. The surrounding adventurers freeze, their jaws dropping to the floor in absolute disbelief at the casual, monstrous display of strength, while a completely unfazed Noah beams with an innocent smile and remarks that the giant man is lighter than he looks. Lion hands the crumpled paper back to the trembling boy, while Hashbart scrambles to his feet, desperately trying to save face by yelling that he just slipped. But the cruelty isn't done. A voice from the crowd sneers that nobody will take such a filthy job unless the kid offers 10 times the reward, making the boy completely break down and sob that it's literally all the money they have. Just as the guild tries to bury the kid under an impossible 10 times reward, a hand snatches the crumpled paper. Noah beams with a bright, eager grin, cheerfully asking if he can take the request himself, leaving Hashbart sputtering in shock as Noah casually declares he doesn't care about the reward and gives Sebas a firm, unbothered yes when asked if he's sure. Sebas watches Noah walk away, struck by the quiet realization that his master actually cared about the people suffering. The village boy is completely starstruck, fawning over his savior until Hashbart blocks their path and roars at them to hold it, demanding to know why the infamous Noah Francis would waste his time on a mere villager. Noah stops, his face cast in shadow, and drops all previous cheer for something cold and absolute, telling Hashbart he'll be taking care of this territory on behalf of his father. The terrifying, shadowed menace from a second ago completely evaporates. Noah's face breaks into a bright, cheerful grin as he flashes a confident thumbs up, declaring that of course he'd resolve any problems in his own territory, leaving the village boy staring up in wide-eyed awe at the noble who just went from a lethal threat to a smiling hero in a single heartbeat. They head toward the forest northwest of the village, warned to stay on guard for wild wolves. But as they navigate the rocky, desolate terrain, a hand grips a sword hilt tight because the real threat isn't wolves at all. A massive, grotesque, spotted frog monster with a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth slithers into view, completely subverting their expectations. Noah stands over the carcasses of the frog monsters, his eyes sharp and scanning the rocky terrain. Something is off. They should be deep in wild wolf territory by now, but his detection skill hasn't picked up a single beast, so refusing to let the mystery slide, Noah tells the group to push a little further west. The two men trailing Noah aren't just complaining about the job, they're plotting a murder. The scarred brute spits that the entire Francis family deserves to die, laying out a plan to claim Noah died in a tragic accident while fighting monsters, and the thin guide readily agrees as they watch Noah walking obliviously ahead, the trap officially set. Noah's eye narrows, his detection skill sharpening his hearing to a supernatural degree to catch every single word of the murder plot. He doesn't flinch, deciding to just wait and see what happens when they finally make their move, letting the scarred brute swing his axe down to cleave another weak monster and laugh maniacally about his fourth kill, completely unaware his prey hears every word. Noah sees right through the brute's pathetic charade as the guides loudly boast that the wild wolves must have migrated. Sebas takes the bait, sighing in relief, but Noah shuts it down cold with a single word that drops like a stone, his eye narrowing with lethal certainty as he knows exactly why the forest is empty. The guide's flimsy lie shatters in an instant as massive, snarling beasts with bared fangs and glowing eyes emerge from the rocky terrain. A scream of panic tears through the air as the terrifying reality sets in. The entire pack has already surrounded them, cutting off any escape. The scarred brute is sweating bullets, his eyes wide with unfiltered terror as he takes in the sheer scale of the threat, screaming that he's never seen a pack this massive. A colossal wolf slams its clawed paw into the dirt, while another beast perches on a high rock, staring down at the two tiny, exposed guides as their murder plot backfires spectacularly and traps them in a nightmare. A colossal, monstrous wolf with a blazing, fiery mane towers over the pack, its fangs bared in a vicious snarl. Flanked by two smaller but equally lethal wolves, the beast dominates the rocky terrain, making Noah and Sebas stare up in sheer horror as one of them screams in absolute panic, identifying the monstrous alpha as a mutated variant. The horned alpha wolf looms over the cliff, its sheer size and mutated power suffocating the group. The scarred guide's body trembles uncontrollably as panic completely shatters his composure, prompting Sebas to step forward with a grim, focused expression, identifying the horned beast as an A-rank threat and declaring he'll handle it while the two guides cower uselessly. Noah plants his feet, his face set in grim determination as he grips his sword, ready to face the nightmare head-on. Behind him, Sebas draws his blade, his expression just as fierce, while above them on the rocky cliffs the dark silhouettes of the massive wolf pack loom over their prey, the tension snapping tight as the battle is about to begin. Lion stares at Noah's back in disbelief, asking if he really plans to take the mutated alpha on alone. Noah calmly tells his teacher he'll be counting on him for backline support. But beneath that cool exterior, sweat beads on his face as the terrifying reality hits him. This isn't a game, and he might actually die. Gripping his duty as a Francis, he pushes forward. Noah stands at the base of the jagged cliff, roaring his vow to fight for the people into the rocky terrain. The alpha doesn't give him a second to breathe, launching itself off the cliff and plummeting straight toward them with its massive jaws unhinged in a deafening roar, the sheer, terrifying force of the descent shattering the treacherous guide's nerves completely and making him cover his ears and scream in pure panic. The scarred guide doesn't even hesitate, violently shoving his thin partner straight into the path of the beast and sprinting for his life. But the coward's escape is instantly cut short as three smaller wolves snap at his heels, closing the distance fast, and before he can even process his betrayal backfiring, a massive snarling wolf face fills his vision, jaws unhinged as the beast lunges in for the kill. Noah launches himself into the air, his blade flashing as he slashes through a leaping wolf in a single brutal arc. On the ground, the scarred guide abandons all pretense and sprints for his life, but the horned alpha wolf lets out a guttural growl, its massive form casting a shadow over the fleeing man as Noah stands directly in the beast's path, facing the apex predator head-on. Lion's fellow trainer screams at him to stop standing around, but Lion just calmly waves it off, realizing the sparring match is already pointless. Noah's blade cuts through the air in a blur of sharp, fluid arcs, completely mastering the weapon in real time, leaving a stunned Lion to ask if Noah has been hiding some secret sword training, only for Noah to flash a grin and drop a bombshell. It's actually his very first time holding a katana. Noah calmly grips his katana, but instead of glaring down the beast, he does the unthinkable and closes his eyes. The sheer audacity of it breaks the scarred guide's brain, making him scream in absolute disbelief that the kid just gave up, but Noah is tuning in, standing perfectly still with his eyes shut as the colossal mutated alpha wolf launches itself forward in a blur of fangs and raw murderous intent. Despite the lethal danger barreling toward him, Noah's mind is eerily still, his fingers tightening around a grip that feels so natural, it's like he's fought alongside this blade for years. The mutated alpha wolf closes the distance in a fraction of a second, its massive jaws ready to tear him apart. But right as the beast strikes, Noah's eyes snap open, blazing with fierce, lethal focus as his new power officially activates. Noah's eyes snap open, burning with lethal intent. He drops into a low stance and unleashes a blinding katana arc, cleaving straight through the mutated alpha wolf's massive limb in a bone-shattering slash. Noah follows up with a devastating counterattack, roaring his battle cry as his blade tears through the air with apocalyptic force. The impact is catastrophic. The shockwave obliterates the wolf's charge, slamming its colossal body into the dirt. Noah calmly sheathes his sword while the beast screams in agony, leaving Lion completely paralyzed by the sheer, unadulterated power. Standing triumphantly atop the slain carcass, Noah earns a whispered name of pure reverence from a stunned Lion. Later, grateful villagers reward him with a massive slab of roasted wild wolf meat, which he devours with unfiltered joy. A young village boy looks up and calls him a good person, instantly melting the reincarnated villain's tough exterior into a soft, genuine smile. Noah eagerly begs the kid to say it again, basking in the warmth of the cheering room. Tearing into the roasted meat with his bare hands, Noah complains that his butler Sebas never stops nagging him about table manners. Then, a shadow falls over him. Sebas looms directly behind his shoulder, demanding to know what this unrefined pigsty behavior is, instantly killing the wholesome vibe. Sebas delivers his final verdict. Noah is being shipped off to the Noble Education Facility to have proper etiquette ruthlessly drilled into his skull. Now standing in line, Noah sweats bullets under his butler's terrifying, unblinking glare. Cecil Edward makes a stunning entrance at the facility, drawing shocked whispers from the crowd, but the romance dies quickly when the instructor announces dance practice. While smooth talkers instantly sweep girls off their feet, Noah panics as he realizes he desperately needs a partner. Just as Noah braces for ultimate humiliation, Cecil steps up and asks to pair up, completely short-circuiting his brain. They hit the floor, but Noah is a stiff, sweating mess, clumsily crushing her heel while admitting he has absolutely no idea how to dance. Sweating through the dance, a terrifying realization hits Noah. Getting along with Cecil could completely derail her canonical route with the hero. Since the game dictates she's supposed to dump him anyway, he resolves to do the unthinkable. He needs to make her hate him, right here on the floor. He decides the perfect, unforgivable crime is to grope her right now. But a brutal memory of the original Noah getting violently slapped for this exact move flashes in his mind, leaving his hand hovering and trembling in sheer terror. Noah completely chickens out, collapsing to the floor in a sweaty heap while Cecil, oblivious, praises his marvelous spin. Desperate to pivot, he scrambles up and blurts out that she deserves to be with someone she actually loves, leaving her completely bewildered. Cecil forces a heartbreaking smile, admitting she's never had the right to choose her own partner since the day she was born. Noah locks eyes with her, quietly acknowledging the cruel reality that she was raised as nothing more than a political bargaining chip. Taking her hands to lead the dance, Noah feels a spike of bitterness that her family would engage her to scum if they truly loved her. He steels himself to ensure she ends up with the hero, but when she softly praises his lead, his heavy, protective intensity leaves her blinking in confusion. Noah shatters the heavy tension with a radiant smile, telling her she needs to decide her own future. Cecil softly admits he's nothing like she imagined, completely short-circuiting his brain and making his tough villain facade crumble into a furious blush. Nearby, a noble girl meekly apologizes for stepping on her partner's foot, only for her chubby fiancé to viciously sneer at her clumsiness. When an attendant politely asks him to keep it down, the brat screams at the man to shut up, throwing a loud, obnoxious tantrum. The arrogant master looms over the trembling girl, viciously reminding her that her low-rank family will fall into absolute ruin without him. Cecil watches the cruel display with a somber expression, quietly accepting this as the inescapable fate of a noblewoman. The brat whips around and screams at the staring crowd, demanding to know if they have something to say. Cecil looks down sadly, but Noah mutters darkly about fate, catching her completely off guard with the sheer venom in his tone. Noah's gaze turns razor-sharp, his disgust boiling over into a venomous mutter that people like that arrogant bastard can go fuck off. Meanwhile, the young master's ugly tirade echoes through the hall as he screams at his terrified fiancée to never disobey him. Noah's venomous mutter snaps into explosive action. He executes a blinding flash step, snatching Cecil into his arms and vanishing in a blur of speed. The arrogant brat's angry lunge hits empty air, sending him crashing flat onto his back while the entire hall stares in wide-eyed disbelief. Noah asks Cecil if she's alright, his eyes darkening into a murderous glare as he realizes the brat hits her regularly. The spoiled master scrambles up, screaming that he doesn't care who Noah Francis is, until Noah cuts through the shouting with a single, ice-cold command that completely freezes the room. The brat shrinks into a sweating, squeaking mess under Noah's terrifying aura. Ignoring him, Noah kneels to the abused girl's level, telling her to speak up when treated like trash, and hands her his crest-bearing handkerchief as a lifeline. Dropping fully to his knees, Noah makes a rock-solid vow that she can always count on him. Cecil watches with wide, dilated eyes, her face burning red as she's left utterly speechless by the unexpected fierce chivalry of the realm's most notorious villain. Cecil realizes he's completely different from the other nobles, finding him deeply mysterious. But when another noblewoman approaches to take over the dance, Noah instantly panics, sweating bullets and bracing himself for a brutal scolding from his partner. Cecil asks if he doesn't like practicing with her, causing Noah to frantically wave his hands and stammer that he's just terrible at dancing. He nervously asks if she's really okay with him, then gently reaches out and takes her hand. Cecil's eyes light up with pure, unfiltered warmth as she gently clasps his hands in hers. A soft blush dusts her cheeks, and she beams a radiant smile, softly telling him that he's actually great. Face still burning, Noah clears his throat and suggests they get back to practice. They fall into step together, moving gracefully in sync as Noah praises her form, sharing a warm, genuinely sweet moment on the dance floor. Karma strikes instantly when the arrogant young master gets his engagement coldly annulled, leaving him begging on the floor. Watching the bully get his comeuppance, Noah feels a brief pang of sympathy, remembering that Cecil is destined to dump this exact guy in the game anyway. Far away, a hooded figure and his cat familiar watch, Noah threw a glowing crystal ball, utterly shocked that a mere kid took down a mutated wild wolf. But with Noah's heroics ruining their plan to incite a rebellion, the figure coldly decides the quicker solution is to just kill him. The figure reveals himself as Albus, the mage of the scales, ordering his familiar Mia to go kill the hero instead. He brushes off her concern about splitting up with chilling confidence, insisting it doesn't matter how strong Noah thinks he is. Albus holds up a crystal ball showing a struggling Noah, declaring that all are equal before him, while his familiar pities the boy. The brutal reality of their plot sets in, as Noah strains violently against thick ropes in the vision, his death already set in stone. The story completely derails from the game's script when Cecil visits the Francis estate unannounced. A servant guides her straight to the training grounds, but when she cheerfully calls out to Noah, a single wide eye stares back at her in absolute disbelief. Cecil's visit is met with the sheer absurdity of Noah trapped in the center of a massive muscle-human pyramid. A giant sits squarely on his shoulders, hoisting a massive barbell, while Noah braces his legs against three other hulking trainers grinding out push-ups. Shirtless and sweating, Noah completely short-circuits, screaming for Cecil to drop the formalities between them. She blushes and fidgets, admitting what she's about to say is really hard, before falling dead silent, wrapping the air in intense, heavy tension. Cecil drops a massive bombshell, nervously asking if she can feel his pecs. Noah absolutely short-circuits, terrified she's just using this as an excuse to pinch his nipples, while his hardcore trainers lose their minds with pure jealousy. Cecil's hopeful expression crumbles into crushing disappointment, asking if it's no good. That look completely breaks Noah, forcing him to cave and stammer for her to go ahead, making her face instantly light up with pure joy. Cecil pokes his rock-hard pec, marveling out loud that it actually twitches every time she touches it. She pulls back with an innocent giggle, calling him interesting and confirming his most embarrassing suspicion: she was just teasing him. Hiding behind a wall, Kiara violently crushes solid bricks in murderous rage at the woman ogling her beloved Oni-sama. But Cecil steps out completely oblivious, cheerfully calling Kiara a cute little sister and dropping the bombshell that she'll be her sister too in the future. Kiara beams, happily calling her Cecil Onisama, while Noah sweats at the terrifying crackling aura between them and bails to train. But the moment they are left alone, Cecil's smile drops into vulnerable insecurity, lamenting that he never replied to her letters and fearing he doesn't like her. Kiara immediately shuts down Cecil's insecurity, explaining that Noah just never misses a single day of his insane routine. She lists his brutal daily grind of muscles, swordsmanship, magic, and 100-kilometer runs, leaving Cecil to realize no normal person could ever keep up with him. Night falls over the estate as Noah sits down to a proper meal, only for a blonde girl across the table to drop a heavy question about the 12 mages. Noah freezes, his eyes widening in pure shock as the name of the ruthless assassination squad hits him. Noah sips his wine, baffled why the squad hunting the hero would come after him instead. The blonde girl instantly shatters his casual dismissal, yelling that they could very well target him and clutching a letter in pure panic. Noah grips his face in stress, realizing the Francis family's massive trade monopoly makes them the perfect target. His panic hardens into a fierce resolve to protect his family, knowing the 12 mages actually want to carve out their own sovereign country. Cecil begs him to take care of himself, making Noah blush and puff his chest as he promises he will. The heavy tension breaks when the main course arrives, and a blonde man politely asks a massive giant servant to take out the trash. Out in the courtyard, the polite blonde man drops his facade, dragging a squirming trash bag containing a bound and gagged man. He sneers at the garbage for struggling, noting the estate's security was expected, but Cecil's unexpected presence was a variable he didn't account for. A massive giant in the shadows calls the infiltration child's play, while the blonde infiltrator sweats in the dark. Inside, Noah eats obliviously at the table, having been slipped a heavy dose of dragon tranquilizer, as the giant plans to crush the life out of him the second he falls asleep. The dragon tranquilizer hits with terrifying speed, making Noah and Cecil slump in heavy exhaustion at the dinner table. A butler smoothly offers to show them to their rooms, the drug pulling the unsuspecting victims into a deep, deadly sleep. The giant looms over Noah's bed, coldly dismissing the heir's legendary strength now that he's passed out. Deciding to be merciful, he raises his massive armored hand to unleash the scales of judgment and send the boy to the next world peacefully. A devastating punch suddenly connects with the giant, launching him backwards straight through the mansion wall and out into the night courtyard. He crashes hard into the dirt, skidding across the ground in pure shock, completely terrified of what just blew him away. Noah stands over the intruder with his sword drawn, casually complaining about some old man sneaking into his bed. The giant stammers in disbelief that the drug didn't work, but Noah just cheerfully realizes that's why he slept so well, leaving the defeated assassin groaning in the dirt about how incredibly refreshed he actually feels. Albus rises from the dirt, drawing two massive, ornate blades, the sword of the Underworld King and the scales of the heavens. He locks eyes with Noah, vowing to take his life right here and then slaughter everyone he loves. Noah's grip tightens on his sword. When he first woke up in his body, survival was purely selfish. But now, the smiling faces of Kiara and the estate staff flash through his mind. He isn't just fighting for his own skin anymore. That fierce protective love hardens into cold, deadly resolve. Noah points his blade straight at the assassin, eyes blazing. He throws down a bold challenge: come at him and face the full, overwhelming power of his muscles. Steel screams as Albus brings his massive weapons down in a brutal barrage. Sparks shower the courtyard as the ornate blades crash against Noah's sword. Noah grits his teeth, locking his arms and refusing to yield a single inch. But the assassin isn't swinging blindly. He unleashes a relentless, multi-pronged assault, a swirling storm of lethal strikes designed to shatter Noah's guard. The sheer force of Albus's strike tears through the air. He thrusts his weapon forward, booming a ruthless command to pierce his enemy. The sky instantly darkens as dozens of massive drill-like lances materialize from thin air, raining down with their deadly tips pointed straight at Noah. Massive lances slam into the earth, kicking up violent shockwaves. Noah sprints through the chaos, a blur of motion weaving through the deadly barrage and narrowly dodging each crushing impact. He holds the absolute advantage in pure swordsmanship, but Albus's relentless spells are bogging down the fight. Completely unfazed by the exploding ground, Noah casually adjusts his tie. If a straight sword fight is going to be this obstructed, he's switching tactics. Noah thrusts his hand forward, a blazing magic circle flaring to life in his palm. He roars fire and launches the spell straight at his opponent. The blast slams into Albus, erupting in a massive cloud of smoke. But the giant assassin just stands there, completely unfazed, scoffing that no pathetic spell could ever hurt him. But that weak fire spell wasn't an attack. It was a trap. Albus tries to reposition with a blinding flash step, but it's already too late. Through the smoke, Noah is right in his face. Albus's eyes go wide with chilling horror as Noah swings his blade in a massive sweeping arc, unleashing the composed claw straight at the assassin. Blood splatters onto the grass. Albus's face twists into a mask of pure agony as a massive, jagged gash tears straight across his chest, ripping right through his defenses. The giant collapses to his knees, gasping in the dirt. Noah stands calmly behind him, sword resting at his side, coldly pointing out there's no way the assassin can keep fighting. Gritting his teeth in defeat, Albus mutters that this must be the end. Coins clink and drop into the ornate bowls of the scales of the heavens. The mechanism shifts, and the deadly gash across Albus's chest completely vanishes. The giant lets out a dismissive sigh, looking down at Noah with a bored glare and asking what wound he's even talking about. Noah stares in absolute shock, realizing his devastating strike did absolutely nothing. The true nature of the scales snaps into focus. The flame inside the weapon grants a wish, but only by offering something of equal value. To heal his fatal wound, Albus simply paid the equivalent cost of a standard healing potion. Albus's eyes narrow in sharp suspicion, demanding to know how Noah understands his magic. Noah just flashes a casual grin, brushing it off as a lucky guess. Unamused, Albus violently drives his sword into the earth, rising to his full towering height and sneering that knowing the trick doesn't mean he can win. Albus holds up his hand, reminding Noah that despite all the flashy attacks, he hasn't landed a single scratch. But Noah isn't even listening. He's completely zoned out, muttering to himself as a wild realization hits. Those massive spatial magic spears would make the ultimate equipment for his muscle training. Albus snaps, screaming at him to pay attention. Noah just looks up with a bright smile and cheerfully admits he found the assassin's magic really interesting. The sheer absurdity leaves Albus completely thrown off balance, his eye twitching as he demands to know if this brat is mocking him. A massive, intricate magic circle suddenly erupts beneath Noah's feet, locking him dead center while Albus stands safely outside its edge. The giant assassin casually adjusts his stance, face settling into a cold, triumphant sneer as he declares the fight over. Noah's eyes go wide with chilling realization, his breath catching in his throat as he realizes he's just been checkmated. The night sky instantly ignites. Albus unleashes his ultimate technique, a catastrophic roaring tsunami of white-hot flames and screaming skulls that swallows the entire battlefield in a blinding inferno. His face twists into a mask of manic arrogance, screaming that this hellfire would reduce even an A-rank adventurer to ash in seconds. In the distance, Noah is completely engulfed by the towering wall of fire, disappearing into the blaze. But Noah bursts straight through the catastrophic wall of white-hot flames, completely unharmed and grinning like a maniac. He reaches his hand forward into the inferno, roaring that Albus's ultimate attack isn't even close to enough. He's going to need a lot more heat than that to stop him. Albus lets out a blood-curdling shriek of pure terror as Noah emerges without a single scratch. Noah casually complains that the attack barely felt like a threat, insulting the assassin by claiming his teacher Frisha packs way more firepower. Then, he looks down at his charred outfit and groans, genuinely worried that the butler Sabas is going to be furious about his ruined clothes. Shifting gears, Noah grips his sword hilt with a deadly serious look. Since fire didn't do the trick, he's ready to show Albus what real pain feels like. Noah's eye widens in sheer horror as he recognizes the offering, a crystal dragon horn. The phantom of a massive armored dragon looms overhead, and the terrifying implication hits him. If Albus is offering something that astronomically valuable, the resulting wish is going to be catastrophic. Albus roars that nobody can stand up to the judgment of the scales as he violently slams his sword down, birthing a massive swirling vortex of terrifying energy. Albus screams his final verdict, declaring it's time for Noah to be crushed by the densest, hardest magic stone in existence. A colossal, rune-carved black cube plummets from the heavens, parting the clouds as it bears down on its target. The massive block slams into the earth with a deafening, ground-shattering boom, kicking up a violent shockwave and burying the battlefield in a thick cloud of dust. Watching the catastrophic impact, Albus quietly acknowledges the brutal truth. Noah was just a kid, but he was pretty damn strong. But as the dust clears, Albus's face contorts in sheer horror. The colossal magic stone isn't burying Noah, it's hovering above his head. Noah is locked in a deep, straining squat, physically holding the apocalyptic monolith up with his bare hands. Not even 50 grown men could budge something that dense, yet this kid is pressing it like a warm-up set. While the giant stands paralyzed in shock, Noah isn't even thinking about the fight. Staring up at the ultra-dense block, his eyes light up with a manic epiphany. This is exactly the kind of heavy dumbbell he's been wanting. The colossal stone just sits there. Albus stares up in sheer shock, letting out a weak, breathless gasp. Perched casually on the edge of the crater, Noah isn't even winded. He just tosses the apocalyptic monolith back down, cheerfully telling the stunned assassin he can have it back. Down below, Lion Sensei rushes forward, frantically demanding to know if Noah is hurt. Noah just flashes a bright, carefree wave, completely brushing off the catastrophic attack as he assures his teacher he's totally fine. Albus scrambles backward across the dirt, staring in sheer horror as a wall of pure, unadulterated muscle blocks his escape. Noah's crew of massive trainers loom over him, their imposing silhouettes swallowing the battered assassin whole. Sweating profusely, Albus lets out a pathetic shriek, screaming at them to stay away and calling them macho monsters. The giant men just lean in closer, their faces breaking into enthusiastic smiles. One gently corrects him, saying it's rude to call them monsters. They prefer to be called muscles. Trapped and completely losing his mind, Albus screams for them to stay away. Albus's terrified shriek echoes across the dark landscape as he flees toward the Francis estate, screaming for the muscles to stay away. The next day, Noah's crew of massive trainers are already back to their grueling routine. They sprint along the grounds, panting heavily but roaring with manic enthusiasm, demanding more weight and more muscle as they relentlessly push their limits. Albus sprints for his life, screaming that Noah's muscle crew isn't even human. A massive trainer jogs casually right behind him, yelling that they haven't even finished half a lap. Back at the estate, a woman demands why a deadly assassin is jogging with them. Noah explains he was going to hand Albus to the guards, but she cuts in. The authorities would just execute him, so she decided adopting him was the better option. A tiny voice immediately calls her out for saying, "Adopt," leaving her completely flustered. Noah looks down at the broken assassin with a terrifyingly serene smile. The deadly scales have been confiscated, and he's absolutely certain Albus will eventually learn to love the joy of muscle training. Beneath him, Albus is completely shattered, face pressed into the dirt and sobbing in pure misery. But there's no rest for the wicked. Lion Sensei is literally sitting on the assassin's back, casually telling the weeping man to get up because his workout is nowhere near finished. As Albus suffers through his forced, hellish routine, a woman walks past the training yard, takes one look at the brutal scene, quietly apologizes for interrupting, and slips away. The twin-tailed mage is absolutely thrilled, declaring that her job is going to be significantly easier now that Albus has joined their ranks. While others casually chat about enjoying their free time, she looks confused by their laid-back attitude. The reason for her excitement becomes brutally clear when a dark-haired guy rolls a wooden barrel into view. Stuffed inside is a battered, miserable Albus. The guy casually drops the horrifying truth. Albus isn't there to fight, he's just going to function as a living mana tank, forced to supply the magic power for all her spells. Trapped in the barrel, Albus can only let out a weak, confused sound. Lion Sensei smiles with terrifying calm, informing the twin-tailed mage that she's the only one powerful enough to handle Noah. Her brutal plan is to use the captured assassin as a living mana battery, forcing the girl to spam endless spells at him for training. The mage completely loses it, screaming at Lion that she's kidding and calling the setup completely inhumane. But when a trainer casually offers her a bucket of potion as an alternative, she gets physically dragged away by Lion, shrieking that this is inhumane too, while Albus just watches his new miserable fate unfold from inside his barrel. Freesia is completely losing her mind, screaming into the void and demanding to know if they're in hell. She frantically begs the battered assassin in the barrel to at least call her senpai and show her some respect, to which a broken Albus weakly whimpers out a compliant yes. Meanwhile, Noah is entirely unfazed by the moral crisis happening right next to him. Radiating manic energy, he announces it's time to get started and asks his maid Cecil to help him build something. Cecil immediately cheers, ready to assist. Frisha's earlier horror completely vanishes, replaced by a blushing excitement as she asks what they're going to make together. Noah throws his hand into the air with a massive grin, declaring the obvious answer, muscle training equipment of course. Noah sits cross-legged in the courtyard, casually sipping a drink from a tiny wooden barrel while surrounded by scattered alchemy ingredients. When his drink runs dry, he holds out the empty barrel to his new employee, demanding more healing potion. The once deadly assassin is now a hollowed-out shell, looking completely drained and dead inside. Albus mechanically stirs a massive cauldron, weakly muttering his compliance. His mind is completely shattered, his hollow eyes staring into the void as he obsessively whispers about the scales, forever traumatized by the very artifact that failed to crush the muscle-bound monster he now serves. Watching from a distance, a woman stares in total bafflement at Noah, who is sitting in the courtyard completely buried under a chaotic mess of bowls, jars, and scattered weights. She has no idea what he's doing, but the older man beside her calmly observes that Noah has recently taken a deep interest in alchemy. Nearby, a girl overhears the mention of the craft, her eyes widening in sudden surprise. Down in the courtyard, Noah is in his absolute element. Holding up a dense block of raw material with a bright, manic grin, he lays out his ultimate training hack, forging dumbbells out of ultra-dense magic stone. But he doesn't stop there. By channeling his mana directly into the rock, he can engineer all kinds of wild Noah proudly shows off his latest alchemical masterpieces, dumbbells that actively increase in weight mid-lift, alongside weights that literally fly away and others that detonate on impact. But the real threat is his personal set, enchanted to weigh 10 times their normal mass and sitting in a crater of their own making. The muscle crew immediately puts the apocalyptic gear to the test. The massive trainers heave the crushing weights, groaning in pure, unadulterated ecstasy. The bald guy grins, declaring the equipment is perfect, while the eye patch guy throws his head back screaming that he can literally hear his muscles crying out in joy. The massive trainers weep tears of absolute joy, clutching their enchanted dumbbells and praising Noah's personal growth. A maid flatly tells them to stop equating raising a child with building biceps. Down in the yard, Albus is tied to a tree, sweating bullets and completely traumatized. He mutters that the mansion is a nest of perverted muscle monsters, though he grimly admits their obsession is the only reason he's still breathing. Nearby, a cat casually wonders if that guy actually managed to kill the hero. Deep in the woods, a lone figure leans against a tree, a cold knot of dread tightening in his gut as he mutters that he has a terrible feeling about him. Elsewhere, a swordsman scans the area in total bewilderment, shouting in frustration because the cat mage he just fought has completely vanished. But as he looks around, a massive, sinister shadow of a cat with glowing, demonic eyes looms ominously right behind him. The hero stands in a field of flowers, shielding his eyes as he looks up at a beam of light piercing the sky. He casually complains about being ambushed, whining that it's so mean to jump him just because he's the hero. Arthur Miriam, the hero of Absolute Oblige, stands tall in a field of flowers, flashing a bright, confident grin as he cheers about the nice weather. But his sunny disposition comes with a massive complication. He is the very man destined to end up with Cecil in the game's original story. Arthur stands at the edge of a massive, dark crater, glancing back toward the estate and panicking that he forgot to take in the laundry. He sighs that it's too late to turn back now. Cradled in his arms, the cat mage is still reeling from the encounter, muttering in sheer disbelief that Noah beat it in just a single attack. But Arthur just flashes a bright, confident smile, admitting that while Noah might be an idiot, he's undeniably super strong. Arthur completely ignores the absurdity of the situation, cheerfully squeezing the chubby cat in his arms and declaring he's glad he finally got to meet McFatty. The cat completely loses its cool, shrieking that its name isn't McFatty. Arthur stops dead in his tracks, the realization finally hitting him. He stares down at the creature in pure bewilderment, asking if it just talked. The cat freezes, sweating bullets as it realizes it completely slipped up. Desperate to cover its tracks, it panics and screams for Albus to save it before letting out a frantic, fake meow. Arthur just blinks, completely buying the terrible acting, and casually agrees that of course cats can't talk. Noah beams with a blinding, cheerful grin as he holds out a massive, heavy dumbbell to his maid, thanking Cecil for the earlier warning that he might be targeted. Cecil just stares at the offering with a blank, confused look, completely unsure how to react. Noah cheerfully insists she doesn't need to be shy and thrusts the heavy weight into her hands. Cecil's eyes swirl into dizzy spirals as she stares down at the object, her brain short-circuiting at the sheer absurdity of the situation. She knows she should be happy to receive a gift from her young master, but it's a literal dumbbell. She stammers out a weak, broken thanks while the butler Sabas approaches, politely calling out to him. Noah tries to hand over another small weight, but Sabas immediately shuts it down, warning that gifting Cecil a dumbbell is incredibly rude. He drops a terrifying truth. Women remember every single present they receive, and one wrong move will haunt a man for life. The butler leans in and whispers they get especially relentless after childbirth. Noah's face drains of color, desperate to undo the damage. He pivots on the spot, telling a bewildered Cecil he needs to make it right and offering her something else entirely. Cecil nervously asks if she can open the little box Noah just handed her. The lid flips up to reveal a gorgeous, sparkling diamond ring. Noah's face drains of color as he stares at it in sheer panic, realizing he just accidentally gave his maid an engagement ring. Before he can even process the disaster, Sebas casually drops the ultimate bombshell. The lord of the house actually prepared this ring specifically for the two of them. Cecil's eyes light up with a delighted gasp, but Noah completely loses his mind. Veins popping in pure rage, he screams at the old man, accusing him of tricking him. Sebas just smirks and looks away, completely unbothered by the absolute chaos he just unleashed. Sebas ruthlessly scolds Noah for being completely hopeless, tearing into him for failing to even meet up with his actual fiancée, while Noah stammers in a flustered mess. Beside them, Cecil is completely captivated by the sparkling diamond, blushing as she gazes at it and calls it beautiful. She holds the open box out to Noah, her eyes shining with pure affection, and softly asks him to put it on her finger. Noah freezes in sheer shock, his brain short-circuiting at the request. As he stands there paralyzed, Sebas casually strolls away, dropping one final, manipulative guilt trip. Noah must promise never to make Cecil feel lonely again. Cornered and sweating bullets, a completely overwhelmed Noah can only weakly stammer out. Noah's face burns as he gently takes Cecil's hand, the air practically sparkling around them while he slides the diamond ring onto her finger. Cecil gazes up at him with a soft, blushing smile, completely captivated. Looking at her, Noah's internal panic melts into genuine awe. He realizes just how beautiful and kind she is, thinking to himself that he's honestly just really glad she came to visit him today. The ring glides smoothly into place, but as it settles, Noah's expression suddenly shifts. His eyes narrow with a sharp, intense seriousness. He's caught up in the moment, but still. The sparkling ring on her finger triggers a brutal reality check, and the bitter truth of the game's original script crashes down on Noah. The one Cecil truly loves isn't him. It's the hero, Arthur. But before he can drown in that dark realization, Cecil's voice cuts through the heavy silence. She looks up at him, her eyes soft and focused entirely on him, and softly calls his name, snapping him right out of his spiral. Cecil's face lights up with a radiant, blushing smile as she gazes at the ring. Noah's eyes go wide and his face burns bright red in sheer shock as she presses her ringed hand to her chest, declaring she will treasure it for the rest of her life. Cecil reaches out, her face etched with concern as she asks what's wrong, but Noah flinches away, arms crossed defensively. He's sweating bullets, forcing a weak deflection and insisting it's nothing, clearly trying to bury the heavy, terrifying reality of the game's original script. Desperate to shatter the suffocating romantic tension, Noah snaps his head toward the training yard and forces a manic, sweating grin, loudly asking if anyone wants another dumbbell. The massive, shirtless trainers instantly lose their minds, throwing their arms up and screaming for one in perfect, muscle-obsessed unison. Completely relieved that his absurd distraction worked, Noah beams with pure joy and cheerfully declares he thinks he can make running weights next. Sebas tries to smooth over the absolute disaster, bowing deeply and begging Cecil to forgive the young master for taking so long to finally present the engagement ring, fully expecting her to be furious. But Cecil completely diffuses the tension. She isn't mad at all. As she walks away with the butler, her entire perspective on Noah shifts. She admits she feels like she finally understands him, realizing that the rumors painting Noah Francis as a cruel, merciless villain couldn't be further from the truth. Meanwhile, completely oblivious to the profound impact he just had on her heart, Noah sits on the ground happily chowing down on his meal right next to his dumbbell. Cecil and Sabas walk away from the training yard, leaving Noah to happily chow down on his meal in the distance. As they walk, Cecil reflects that the dark rumors about Noah were indeed true long ago, but he has completely changed all by himself, transforming into a truly wonderful person. Sebas, initially caught off guard by her words, softens and agrees that he thinks the young master is wonderful too. Cecil beams with a radiant smile, her heart completely won over by the genuine young man she just spent time with. She declares to Sebas that the true Noah is exactly the one she saw with her own eyes, completely dismissing the cruel rumors of the past. Beside her, Sebas listens with a serious, thoughtful expression, silently taking in her heartfelt words as they continue their walk. As they walk away, Sebas suddenly asks Cecil what actually brought her to the estate today. Cecil looks at him, slightly exasperated, and reminds him that it's very soon. Sebas pauses, his expression turning serious as he strokes his chin, silently processing the looming deadline. Meanwhile, back in the training yard, Noah's muscle-obsessed chaos has completely taken over. A trainer rallies the group, shouting for everyone to train together. Noah leads the pack of shirtless men in perfect unison, lunging forward with heavy dumbbells while chanting in a manic rhythm. Observing this absolute spectacle, Sebas quietly concludes that the young master is going to be buried in nothing but muscle training for the foreseeable future. Noah sits cross-legged on his bed, completely stunned by a bizarre update in his status window. For the longest time, his intelligence stat just read unknown, likely because the system had no idea how to process the knowledge of a modern Japanese person. But today, the system finally processed it and slapped him with a brutal, hilarious reality check. His intelligence stat is officially just muscle. Noah completely loses his mind over his new status update, screaming at the system to explain what the hell intelligence muscle even means. He's furious, demanding to know if his brain is now completely dominated by his biceps, and if the system is literally calling him a meathead. He shrieks for more answers, but his frustration peaks when he physically struggles with the book in his hands, cursing because he can't even get the damn thing to open. Sebas watches this chaotic meltdown from the side of the bed and calmly interrupts. The butler drops a heavy hint, stating that Noah appears to have forgotten something important, leaving a completely derailed Noah to just blink and ask what. A brutal deadline drops like a guillotine. Only 1 year remains until the capital's entrance exam. Noah tries to play it cool, casually curling a heavy dumbbell, but the butler snatches the iron midlift. Sebas's eyes burn with a terrifying, dead-serious intensity. Startled by the sudden shift in the room's atmosphere, Noah nervously asks, "What is wrong?" Sebas delivers a soul-crushing decree. All muscle training is officially forbidden until the exam is over. Noah drops to his knees in pure, unadulterated horror, his brain short-circuiting at the thought of surviving a single year without lifting. He collapses face first onto the floor, sobbing in absolute agony at the looming threat of academic hell. Desperate to escape his academic prison, Noah sprints away, screaming about a date with his biceps. Sebas doesn't even flinch. He casually hoists a massive iron weight into the air, threatening to crush it into dust if Noah doesn't comply. The threat hits instantly, dropping the young master to his knees in paralyzed defeat, held hostage by his own beloved dumbbell. Grasping at straws, Noah tries a desperate loophole, stammering that nobles can just pay their way into the academy anyway. Sebas shuts it down cold. He reminds Noah of the cruel, venomous reputation that has branded him as scum his entire life. Then, the butler's tone shifts to fierce pride, declaring they will use this exam to prove every single doubter completely wrong. Sebas weaponizes Noah's obsession, roaring that he needs to take the absolute top spot at the academy using his muscles. Noah's eyes literally sparkle as he hallucinates himself as a god-tier bodybuilder standing on the #1 podium. But Sebas immediately slams the brakes. To claim that top spot, he has to study. And to make sure he does, Sebas calls in a strict new tutor. The ultimate academic nightmare steps through the door, and it's Cecil, dressed to kill. She adjusts her glasses with a teasing smile, announcing she is his new teacher and promising to be with him every single day. Noah's brain completely short-circuits, erupting in a massive blush as he stammers about her incredibly distracting outfit. Cecil strikes a dazzling pose in a revealing idol-style outfit, cheerfully asking if the look motivates him. But Noah's muscle-obsessed brain completely derails for the exact wrong reason. Instead of getting flustered by the skimpy getup, he stares in genuine, unblinking awe at the fact that she actually has pretty good abs. Convinced she is a fellow muscle lover, Noah watches in surprise as Cecil steps right into his personal space and gently clasps his hands. She reveals she is taking the academy entrance exam right alongside him. Noah's respect instantly skyrockets. He adjusts his collar with a determined smile, declaring her diligence is exactly the example he needs. Throwing his arms into the air, Noah roars that he is going to do his absolute best while Cecil cheers him on. Shifting into full tutor mode, she dives straight into the history of the capital's magic association. Noah is completely locked in, hunched over his desk and begging her to keep going, fully committed to the academic grind. But that commitment lasts exactly 5 minutes. Noah is completely dead to the world, face planted onto his desk while Cecil screams his name in sheer panic. Sebas collapses to his knees. He diagnoses a horrifying condition where Noah's biceps sever all electrical signals to his body the second he tries to study. Cecil shakes him frantically, but Noah remains completely limp, eyes rolled back and drooling. Sebas proposes a desperate bribe, suggesting they just promise Noah a new dumbbell to wake him up. Cecil blushes and suggests a boy his age might be more interested in girls. That makes Sebas absolutely lose his mind. veins popping on his forehead. The butler furiously roars that real men will do absolutely anything for a dumbbell, utterly crushing her romantic hopes. Sebas sighs and admits that young Master Noah has definitely built quite a lot of muscle, finally making Cecil Ashley look at him. A deep blush creeps up her face as she takes in the sheer size of his torso, realizing his chest and abs are 2 levels bigger than before. Completely mesmerized by the rock-hard physique, her hand instinctively reaches out to touch him. Sebas roars that he is confiscating the dumbbells if Noah keeps sleeping. The sheer terror of that threat instantly resurrects the dead. Noah's eyes snap open in unadulterated horror, lunging forward to save his beloved weights while Cecil stammers about getting back to studying. But as night falls over the looming Academy castle, an hourglass drains its final grains of sand, heralding a terrifying new threat. Deep in the shadows, a mysterious figure emerges, seated on an ornate, towering throne in elaborate white and black robes. Their faces completely hidden behind a tall, pointed headdress and a dark mask, marked only by a strange symbol on their forehead. The stranger radiates an aura of absolute authority and impending danger. In a shadowy chamber, a hooded figure confirms that the whereabouts of the Mage of the Scales and the Mage of the Magic Cat are completely unknown. Lisa tries to brush it off as a bad matchup for her first job, but Flamma isn't buying the excuse. The stern, dark-haired man slams his hand down, demanding to know exactly who took them out. Flamma drops a bombshell, naming the hero Arthur Miriam as the one who took out Albus. Arthur sits right there in the room, coldly dismissing his failure with a ruthless lack of empathy. Ignoring the hero's arrogance, Flamma lays out their twisted objective. They were supposed to drag the Francis territory into ruin to use as a catalyst for the kingdom's total destruction. The hooded figure's voice cuts through the heavy tension, declaring that every ruthless move is for the sake of their grand purpose. Across the long candlelit table, Arthur, Lisa, and the rest of the conspirators sit in grim silence. They are fully committing to the twisted path of destroying the Francis territory and killing Noah. A terrifying new faction looms in the shadows, revealed to be the 12 Mages. A massively muscular brute with a wild mane and a sinister glowing chest tattoo glares with lethal intent. Behind him, 3 other imposing figures stare forward with cold, calculating expressions. Lisa rolls her eyes, complaining that their leader is always so strict, but the hooded figure completely ignores her attitude. With the sand in the hourglass running out, a cold, commanding voice orders them to deal with the situation immediately. The massive, tattooed brute stalks out of the chamber as the shadowy faction moves to execute their deadly orders. Lisa scoffs, visibly disgusted by the arrogance of the strong, but Flamma immediately shuts her down. He demands to know if she has finished investigating the Francis territory. The annoyance vanishes from Lisa's face, replaced by a cold, quiet focus as she confirms she has. Flamma pores over the stolen intel, uncovering the terrifying truth about the Francis family's hidden roster. They aren't just ordinary staff, they have a retired legendary assassin, a former master hunter, and an invulnerable royal defense captain. Flamma clenches his jaw, realizing they made a fatal mistake by sending Albus in alone. Flamma shoves aside his desire to mourn Albus, declaring that kidnapping the second princess Clayloris takes absolute priority. Lisa smirks, dropping the intel that the princess is already heading straight for the Francis territory. Flamma turns away, his voice dripping with lethal intent as he vows to wipe out both the princess and Noah. Flamma and Lisa hit the ground running, moving out to execute their deadly orders. Flamma thrusts his hand forward, a glowing magical seal blazing on his palm as he growls that it is time to hunt. His face hardens into a grim mask as he swears a blood oath to avenge his fallen friend. Chaos erupts across the Francis estate as Anbar, the massive former master hunter, sprints down the halls in a full-blown panic, screaming for Sebas. The legendary assassin turns around completely unfazed and asks what the problem is. Anbar gestures to the absolute devastation behind him, revealing a completely obliterated room and the terrifying truth that Noah has escaped. Cecil kneels in the wreckage, staring in absolute awe at a completely crushed dumbbell in her hands. Siva snaps out of his shock and immediately takes command, ordering Anbar to team up with Orga and hunt Noah down. As the massive search begins, Cecil admits she is terrified precisely because Noah is so strong, but Sebas confidently insists there is nothing to worry about. Sebas confesses his desperate tactic to Cecil, admitting he forced Noah into total muscle abstinence just to get him to focus on his studies. Sweating bullets, Cecil realizes the catastrophic damage that will occur when Noah's pent-up muscle desire finally bursts. The worst-case scenario is already in motion. Noah has completely vanished into the night, leaving behind a blunt note declaring he is going on a trip. And that's where this part leaves us. If you want to see whether Sebas' story really ends here, hit subscribe and check back for the next part.